I read somewhere, and I can't source the quote, but if my memory serves me, there are now about 380 separate reasons why some kind of official can demand entry to your home. So the old principle of an Englishman's home being his castle has sort of rather gone away. Now, let me get on to a delicate area where some people may not agree with me, but I believe that governments around the world, and our government, and the European Union, is taking the whole climate change issue and using it A, to raise taxes, and B, to increase regulation, and again, to limit our freedom even further. When the European Union can come along and tell us what sort of light bulbs we have to have, of course it's sensible to use low energy light bulbs. I have about 20 in my house, but I also have other applications where only incandescent bulbs are appropriate, and I want to keep them. So fine, tell people it's cheaper to have low energy light bulbs, great. But the idea that you would withdraw from the market a product that they want to use, the way we work in a free society is we offer people better products. The industry is moving fast to do that. Probably incandescent light bulbs would have disappeared in 5 years anyway, as the quality and the flexibility of low energy light bulbs improves. But no, the government can only think of doing, and the European Union can only think of doing these things by banning things. And the huge amount of regulation, the huge amount of taxes, we saw the Ofgem report, the vast increase in projected electricity bills. I'm feeling very sore about onshore wind farms at the moment, partly because they're proposing to build one within a mile of my village, so I'm not keen on that. But again, the government seems determined to force these through in the teeth of planning objections. I hope very much that the Conservative government will make good its words on localism and make sure that local people have a bigger say. On the general issue of climate change, by the way, it's very much in this sort of politically correct category where you're just not allowed to be heretical and say a word against it. So I was very struck by two things that have happened in the last 2 or 3 days. I've been taking an interest in climate change for I think 2 or 3 years now. I sat on the European Parliament's temporary committee on climate change. But the BBC, which we all know has been a cheerleader for climate alarmism as long as anybody can remember, the BBC has published a report pointing out that global temperatures have actually declined in the last 10 years and that many scientists are questioning the science. If you haven't seen it, if you Google BBC plus whatever happened to climate change, it comes straight up, and I tell you, it's well worth a read. And the Sunday Times had a big story at the weekend, which was headlined, "Everything you thought you knew about climate change is wrong." So I won't spend any more time on climate change, but there is a debate there to be had. But of course the biggest challenge to freedom, and you know what I'm going to say, the biggest challenge to freedom, of course, is Europe. We've mentioned light bulbs. There's the issue of the working time directive. I get people writing to me and phoning me and emailing me saying, look, I need to do the overtime to pay for the mortgage. I need to do the overtime to look after my family. Who are these people who are telling us that we cannot work more than 48 hours a week? I'm one of the guys in the Parliament that passed the legislation. I hasten to add I voted against it. I work more than 48 hours a week. I wouldn't want anybody coming and telling me that I can't work more than 48 hours a week. Still less would I want to get home from Brussels and be in my car going down the motorway and have somebody come along and say, right, your time's up, you better pull into the next service station and sleep in the car and you can drive home in the morning. That's what we say to lorry drivers. And you will have seen stories in the paper this week that some people in the National Health Service are not only saying it's difficult to run a health service with the 48-hour week legislation, there are actually reports that people have died. Now they may be alarmist, I hope they are alarmist, I hope nobody has died. But that is the sort of direction that we're going in with this command and control society. We've got a European Union that believes it has a right to legislate anything. It never stops and says, hang on, is this something best left to the individual, or to the member state, or to the local authority? No, it says, oh, there's a problem, we'll have a new regulation. And that is entirely the attitude. Not just because they want the regulation, but I'll tell you why. I serve on the Unemployment Committee of the European Parliament, and I occasionally go up to another colleague after they've voted through some outrageous and acceptable measure, and I say, look, why did you do this? It means there will be more unemployment amongst your constituents. And they say, well, Roger, we know you've got a bit of a problem with it, but we're building Europe. It's another brick in the European wall. They are interested in more and more and more legislation because they think that's more Europe, regardless of whether it's good for you or not. But the biggest challenge to our freedom is quite simply the issue of what we used to call the European Constitution, And then when they couldn't get that past the French and the Dutch, and God bless the Dutch, when they couldn't get it past them, they decided that if they put a different label on the front and called it the Lisbon Treaty, they could then get it through without any sort of referendum and without the people having a say. And of course, they have fallen in that. The Danes voted no to Maastricht and were told to go away and vote again until they got the right answer. The Irish voted no to Nice, were told to go away and vote again until they got the right answer. The Irish, God bless them, then voted against the Lisbon Treaty and then were told to go away and vote again until they got the right answer. Somebody wrote to the paper and said, right, we've got 1 for and 1 against in Ireland, should we have a decider? We'll have a third referendum. But that illustrates, like nothing else, the, not disregard, but the absolute contempt which the European institutions have for the opinions of people like you and me and for the ordinary voters. Those are the great challenges to our freedom. I'm delighted that David Cameron is committed at least to starting to bring back cars from Brussels. I think he may have an even bigger row on his hands than he anticipates when he sets out to do that. But that is his commitment. He repeated it at the party conference. Thank God he's doing it. And let's get on with the work, and let's hope that general election is not too far away. Thank you very much indeed.